Welcome to the NHL Wraparound podcast featuring Neil Smith, President General Manager of the 1994 Stanley Cup champion New York Rangers, and longtime ESPN NHL veteran Vic Morin. Together, they share no-nonsense opinions on news and issues around the National Hockey League. Whether you're a casual or diehard fan, each episode of NHL Wraparound will leave you more informed. Now, here's your hosts, Neil and Vic.
The Devils plays it cross ice into the far corner. Matteau swoops in to intercept. Matteau behind the net. Swings it in front. He scores! Matteau! 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 Stephane Matteau! And the Rangers have one more hill to climb, baby! But it's Mount Vancouver! The Rangers are headed to the final!
The memorable call from Howie Rose, putting an exclamation point on one of the great playoff series in Stanley Cup history. Hello, and welcome once again to 1990 Forever, a 5-part series sponsored by MikeRichter and the Game 7 Group, commemorating the 30th anniversary of the New York Rangers' 1994 championship season. In our first two shows, we unpacked the regular season with goalie Glenn Healy and former MSG TV analyst John Davidson, and the playoff series with the New York Islanders and Washington Capitals with defenseman Kevin Lowe and right wing Steve Larmer. Now, join Neil and me as we look back at a series for the ages, the Eastern Conference Final against the New Jersey Devils, with two of the true heroes of that playoff epic, goaltender MikeRichter and left wing Stephane Matteau. But first, let's have a word from our friends at MikeRichter.
From Howe to Hughes, from Bellevue to Bedard, we're your source for Game 1 jerseys. Go to MikeRichter.com, MEIGRAY.com to start your collection today. Get real. Get it from MikeRichter.
And welcome back to NHL Wraparound, a special edition 1990 Forever, a series for the ages. And joining me, my usual partner in crime and host on the NHL Wraparound podcast and the president and general manager of the 1994 champion New York Rangers, Neil Smith. And also with us, pleased to welcome MikeRichter, who's without his heroics in Game 6 and 7. We're not sitting here doing the show today. And the man who had so much fun scoring a double overtime goal in Game 3, he wound up doing it again in Game 7, Stephane Matteau. Thank you for each of you for joining us today.
Our pleasure. Yes, thank you very much. Our pleasure.
Anytime I get a chance to talk about Steph, it's a great day.
And we're going to try to make it even better here. So, Neil, you're a historian, and there are really few series that hold up over many, many years. I mean, Montreal and Boston, the 1979 semifinal, that one comes to mind. And certainly this series has stood the test of time as being one of the all-time great series.
You know, it really is. And I don't think there's anybody that was an adult back in those days that would deny that. I think you had two rivals going together. You had the first overall and the second overall teams of that season. You had two teams that, for all intents and purposes, had never won the Stanley Cup yet, because we were trying to break a 54-year jinx. The Devils had never won to this point. They were trying to get their first Stanley Cup, and we were trying to break a historic time gap of when an original six team had not won a Stanley Cup. So there was a lot on the table for both, but they were both big rivals. And a lot of people forget that the Devils had some huge Hall of Famers on that team. They had Fetisov was on that team, like one of the all-time greats. Niedermeyer was on that team. Scott Stevens, of course. And, of course, down at the other end from Mike was Marty Brodeur. So it was great hockey players. Of course, the Rangers, we had Mess, the best of everybody. And then, we had Leetch and Gravy and Richter and the famous Stephane Matteau and on and on and on. Keenan, who we still don't know what he was saying during that series. But it was just two real big rivals. And it's hard to forget.
Mike, I want to start with you as we start to wind into this series. During the course of the regular season, Rangers are 6-0, and basically that's the difference between first and second overall in the league. Rangers finished with 112, Devils finished with 106, and even somebody that was a little less than a math major like me could figure out that was the difference in terms of finishing first and second overall. You play in 5 of those games. You give up 6 goals in total. Marty Brodeur gets pulled multiple times during the course of that 6-game regular season series. And you've beaten this team. You beat them in the Garden. You beat them in the Meadowlands. You beat them in Halifax. Going in, what's the sense of confidence that you're just going to be able to continue to roll over what was a really good Devils team?
It's a good question, Vic, because we did have that. And I think first and foremost, the fact is head-to-head match, we did beat them during the season. So you know exactly how you measure up against them. But I think a second thing is really important. We really bolstered our lineup at the trade deadline. I'm sure we'll talk about that. But adding Steph and the heroics of his 2 double overtime goals aside, we, I think, solidified our lineup in a manner that I didn't even anticipate. You try not to. You don't know whether the trades are going to go through, and there's a lot of rumors swirling around. And Neil's quite good at doing his job, and he's going to do what needs to get done to make our club better. And we were great at that time, and we were leading the league. But coming out of that, trade deadline, we were a better team. You felt it. We were heavier. We were more experienced. We were more complete. We're probably better defensively. And you have to get rid of great talent to get great talent. But I think those 2 things, in my eyes, were really important. And the third thing is, we beat them head-to-head. I think it's most important. We really improved. So this wasn't a team that was on its last legs coming into the playoffs. We actually had this breath of fresh air and really felt strong. We felt we had a powerful combination. And then we go into the Islanders series and Washington. And 2 teams, look, winning the President's Trophy feels like a recipe for falling on your face. And we came out and played very well. And we were, I think, 8-1 going into the Devils series. So the third thing is just how we responded in the playoffs. It was complete hockey games. These weren't just an opponent that wasn't good. Every battle along the way for Washington and the Islanders, no matter what the score, no matter what the games were for and against, was contentious. It was hard, and we responded very well. So those 3 things, I think, gave us a lot of confidence heading in New Jersey. But again, that's why you play the game. You don't know what's going to transpire. But we had a ton of confidence at that point.
Stephane, you had only played in one of those games after you were acquired at the trade deadline from Chicago. Did you have any idea what was to come in this rivalry with New Jersey?
Not at all. Not at all. It was, like Mike said, we kind of went through the Islanders in 4, scoring a lot of goals, and went through Washington exactly the same thing. I think that's, looking back now, it saved us because we had an older team, save a lot of energy. But you go through every single day, every game has a title. Game 1 has to be the most important game of the playoff. Then we end up losing game 1 against the Devils. So in the double overtime, but not a clue. Knowing I was surrounded by greatness, not only great players but great leaders who. I think another people, we mentioned Mark Messier, how much he was a leader, but he was surrounded by Kevin Lowe and Craig McTavish, who, we didn't have any cameras back then in our locker room, but those soldiers were so important to the team and Mark's success also, because they were whispering in Mark's ears what to say next. and Mark would analyze. But it was a calm group, a group who won before. And for us, like Mike and I, we never won the cup before. And to listen to how, and also how the Edmonton Oilers guy, how they reacted after losing a game or winning a game. It was so important to us to have them, their leadership in a locker room.
And in that first game, this gets tested right away because you haven't trailed in either of the first two series. You have three separate leads in game one. Larmer puts you guys ahead with a little less than 9 minutes left in regulation. And then kind of the little disturbing trend starts to kick in. Claude Lemieux ties the game with 43 seconds left in regulation. And Devils have a real sense of confidence that maybe they didn't have during the course of the 6 regular season games. And Mike, you have to remember the goal that Stephane Richter scores in the second overtime where Gravy is forced to play defense and he powers around him and just gets one over your poke check to win game one.
Yeah, and I think it's like you're seeing the playoffs this year. Great teams playing great teams. The momentum shifts, and as Steph says, every game is a new script, and you have to write that story. Every period really is. Peter Lavalette was just asked that as a carryover from the last one. We went in with great confidence, but so did Jersey, and then you quickly can turn 180. Oh my gosh, now we're on our heels. They beat us kind of shockingly in our building, and 8-1 doesn't look so good when you're, who cares? We won those first 2 rounds. We're 0-1 in this round, and we're at the risk of losing home ice advantage. But that's what a veteran team like Steph was talking about. That's why Neil put these guys in the locker room. You have to react. And what did we do well? What didn't we do well? And so I think the one thing that I would hear every time we ran into some adversity was, we can do better. We have to play our game. It's not like you're looking for some savior outside of the 4 walls of your locker room. We understood how we can play and what it takes to be successful, and we have to get back to the knitting. You're not going to win very rarely every series in 4. You're not going to dominate every game. And so your reaction to how to what adversity comes your way is really meaningful. And again, I will reach back. The dominance that we had in the 6 games during the regular season is great. But as soon as they win in the playoffs, it almost turns against you. But this is where that locker room with experience and really reliable, dependable guys. You talk about Steph, and we should, because it's amazing. Double overtime goals, or when Glennie Anderson scores a great goal in the playoffs. These are important moments, clearly, but it's the things between those highlights that are really important. How you react in the locker room, what you're whispering to Mark, the way you feel about yourself after wins and losses, and that was all at play. Because, man, the playoffs are so compelling because that momentum shifts so fast. And that overtime goal that Richter got, boom, now they had the advantage. And how do we react to that? And it is immediately a must-win for us coming back into that second game in our own building. That's a big turn of events. So it really came down to how we were going to react to it.
Mike, you'd been with Mark for 3 years. Steph, you're playing with him for the first time. Neil, this is really the precursor heading into game 2 as to why you acquired Mark Messier from Edmonton in 1991. And game 2 starts and he decides, I'm putting this team on my shoulder out of the get-go. So he puts Scott Stevens on his ass. He hits Ken Danico. He stuffs a goal in 73 seconds into the game. And the team is off and running in game 2. And this is really what you got him for.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that I'm smart enough to have known that he could do that for us. But once Mark was on the team, and you started to watch him over game after game, Mike can talk to this too, is that like you go, holy crap, is this guy good? Like, I knew he was good, but I'm just going to be flat out honest. I didn't know he was that good. But a lot of the players that I got, I knew they were good and I'd analyze them, but I didn't know they were that good. But Mark, of course, was a notch above everything. And you're right. He did in that game to say, this is watch this, boys. And he grabbed everything and put it on his shoulders, knocking their captain, Scott Stevens, over and then jamming that goal in. So, but this is what he would do. And this is I think, and I wasn't in the locker room, but this is the confidence that he would give everybody, his teammates, the fans, the management, maybe even that coaching staff. He would give them the confidence by his actions, like, oh my God, look at, okay, all right, here we go. I think it just was something that would go through the building when Mark did this stuff. And it happened so many times that, it happened during the regular season. There were games when he would do this all of a sudden. And I'm sure for the players, it had to be just so uplifting and had to really calm their nerves about whether they're going to win or lose.
Steph, you had seen and played against Mark, now playing with him and actually seeing this from the right side of the ledger. How did that come off to you?
Impressive. Like Mike said, it was a must-win for us in Game 2. It's never, when you're winning, practices are loose. Guys are singing. Guys are loud in practice. We try some moves in practice that you probably would not try in the game. But when it's a must game, especially that Game 2, it's a pressure game. The focus was in practice the day before, and the morning of. It was all business. And Mark led the way, not by talking much, just the look, the glare that he has. I was with the Calgary Flames my first year playing against the Oilers when they won the Cup without Gretzky, and I saw that glare too many nights. We lost in Game 7. But that was, now that I look back 30 years later, that all great players after a loss, and how do they react? Most likely they don't get shut down twice in a row, and they lead by example, and that's what Mark did in Game 1 and Game 2. He led by example, and us follower, because I was not a leader, I followed, waiting for something to happen. He was incredible just to witness what Mark brought to the team.
Mike, this winds up being your fourth of the 4 shutouts during the playoff run. But this game was not all that easy. That goal holds up into the third period, and you have to really survive a couple of real tense moments in that game. The Devils had minute 25 of a 2-man advantage. You made a couple of key stops there. And then probably the big one was when Bill Guerin stepped in alone and you made the glove save.
Well, I just thought it was such a complete game by our team. And, we felt, in our locker room that we were in control the whole way. I didn't have that much work. Marty certainly had more. We kept the scoring chances to a minimal. Rebounds, shots to the outside. I mean, we had a team that was heavy. And you say that, and that means you always think of a forecheck where you're destroying the defenseman and all that. And we're capable of doing that. But it also means we're just strong on the puck. And so we could out-muscle people. Even a guy like Kovalev that you just think is this great skilled player, try to get the puck off from along the boards. Very, very difficult to do. So I thought in that game, we were in really great control. We had the puck on our stick an awful lot. We didn't have it do an awful lot of amazing things. We were just line after line. The depth of our lineup really showed, and everybody was dialed in. And we talk about the leadership of Mark, which should be talked about. But leadership means nothing unless you have guys that follow in the right way. And we had guys that were soldiers, and I don't mean that in like they were just told what to do and they did it. They understand what the role was. They understood how hard these jobs are, and they did it every time. And when you have a team that buys into the concept and says, look, whatever it takes, we're going to do it. We might have to win 1-0 one game. If it's a 6-5 sloppy game over here, we have to get the win no matter what. And we had that type of team. So it was kind of a perfect combination of great leadership, but also people that bought in and then made good on that leadership idea. And I can tell you how that's the team that felt like had so many layers of strength because because of the quality of the players that were there and the quality of people. When you need to lock it down, they did. And that was a perfect example of that game too. Without that win, we're in real trouble in that series.
And it's almost as if once the team got past the second period and you'd made the key saves, 3 goals in the third period really took control. So now series is even, and I want to hear from each of you on this, because in the context of that series, everybody remembers Game 6 and Game 7 and Mark's guarantee and then the epical conclusion to the series. I've always felt that the third game of this series is the greatness of it is lost in the context of the rest of the series. Neil, I'll ask you first, and then Stephane and Mike react to what Neil says.
Well, it's funny. I don't remember a lot about that game, and I think that's probably because I was so scared and worried. To be really honest with you guys, the thing I remember most about Game 3, for some reason, I ended up down in the locker room with the team doctors. And when Steph scored that goal, I was watching it on TV. And, we're all elated. I mean, we're all just jumping up and down like hyenas. I don't know why I wasn't in the press box where I usually was. I don't know. I might have just been too damn scared. I was just, you don't know what to do. The thing that I think Mike and Steph know now that they didn't know when they were players is because they got kids and they've gone to their hockey games and all this stuff. When you're not playing, you have no control, zero control. So you might be the president and GM and a big, powerful guy, but you know what? You're just one of a bunch of people at that game hoping that the guys in blue win the game and that they play well. And if they play crappy, there's nothing I can do. And if they play like superstars, each and every one, it wasn't because of me. I mean, I was just there eating popcorn. So, I just remember that game was such a relief when Steph scored that goal because, obviously we didn't want to go get behind again in the series. We had already been behind by a goal. And I think Mike's right. Coming off those first 2 series, you're really rolling, but then boom, it changes. And you're down 1-0, 3 more losses, guys, and it won't matter what happened. Now you win Game 2. Oh, relief. Now we go into 3. Oh my God, if they score first, we're down again 2-1. And it's just that back and forth, up and down in your emotions.
Mike, you have to make 2 enormous saves on Tommy Albelin, consecutive on the same play in the second overtime. Walk us through that.
My recollection of it was, it's a tight game, and I have to tell you, Neil's exactly right. I had a blast playing that game. It was fun. There was great chances. It was just a slugfest, and it was, 2 great teams, the 2 best teams in the league playing each other 7 miles away or whatever MSG was from the Brendan Byrne Arena. And, a lot of hatred in the stands going each way and a lot of Ranger fans there. So a bit of a zoo. And, this thing's coming to conclusion, right? We split in New York, and now it's a best of 5. And man, oh man, there's every face-off, everything. It got nasty. It was a great contested series. And that one, it seemed to open up a little bit. And, oddly enough, Tommy Albelin, right, is such a good defensive team in New Jersey, but they're also disciplined enough to know to jump up into a play. And there was I think it was a 2-on-1 at one point, and maybe it was it Glennie Anderson who was back on it anyway. It went across, and Glennie was at least back checking. I remember crashing into him, he crashing into me, and we kind of both made the save. And there's those moments where, as Neil says, if you're watching, it's painful because you have no control whatsoever. If you're playing, it's a lot more fun. The action's going on, you're focused, so you can at least do something about it. There was a good cross ice pass, and I was able to get over and make the save with my leg. And so in those moments, momentum can shift. You think you have a goal, and then it gets taken back. But I just remember Steph scoring and how elated we were because you want the win, of course, but you also know that's a bit of a dagger. Now you're in their building, and we are just facing being down 2 and entirely losing the series. Now you take one from them, and now pressure's on them. They have to win that 4th game. So there was so much in those tiny little moments, one save here, one bounce there, one great overtime goal, and the series does a 180. I mean, you think of where we were heading into that second game versus coming out of the third game, entirely different context. And so, and this is exactly, I mean, as a sports fan, this is what you want, right? 2 great teams, and it goes back and forth. They take first blood. We take it back from them. Now we go on the aggression, we're aggressive, and we take one in their building. And both teams have to kind of appropriately deal with both the success they just had. You win the third game. It doesn't mean the series, obviously, but you lose the third game, man, you're in jeopardy of losing the series. So both teams have to react for and against very, very appropriately. And, to me, that it's what you dream of in the driveway as a little kid. You want to be in those moments. The fans were losing their, minds in the stands. We were having a great battle on the ice. That's what you train your entire life to do. And when Neil was speaking about this podcast and talking about this series, I just, to this day, 30 years later, I'm saying, thank God we're in a series that was that memorable. I'll take a Stanley Cup win no matter how it comes, but to go and double overtime in 7 games, 2 times double overtime against the second best team, by points in the league that year, 7 miles away, you couldn't have written a script that's much better. So to be part of this is such a memorable, interesting part of your career, and that you were pushed to your max as an organization. That's what you live for as an athlete.
Well, 3 double overtime games in total, 2 on the right side of the score sheet. But you had mentioned the nasty. No, that's right. but you had talked about how the series was really starting to get nasty, and that things are starting to ramp up. And Bernie Nichols cross-checks Alexei Kovalev, which got him suspended for game 4. But you could just feel in these overtimes, things amping up to this fever pitch. And Stephane, you wind up becoming part of Ranger history with this multi-overtime goal against Marty Brodeur from in close. Michael, walked us through the saves against Albelin. Walk us through the goal.
Well, I was just warming up. Obviously, it was my first double overtime. No, it was.
Can I just say how disappointed Neil and the entire organization was that he couldn't have done it 3 times? I mean, you had it. The script was there in the first game, but okay.
It was
that's right.
It was a cheapy game. I recall it was so nasty, but like to Mike's point, it was so much fun to be part of it because it's hard to tell someone who plays in the Beers League. We're professional. We're fast. We're in top shape. We're in the 3rd round. But the first period, if I can describe it, that game was so fast. It's like going on the highway with a moped. And it's like the cars are coming. And if you're not ready, the time is like, you better get yourself ready pretty quick. And it was the up and down. And Keenan was pretty good at keeping the line together. Myself, Kovalev, and Steve Larmer. But that one shift, Glenn Anderson was on the same line than us. And Alexei was on the ice. And we were buzzing. I remember just like I wasn't skilled, less time with the puck, better I was. And I've learned to go in front of the net and keep your stick on the ice. And they were doing the job behind the net, and Kovalev and Anderson did their best. And I went in there, remember, get the puck in my skate, and it was not a great goal again. But I just remember just whacking at it. All I've seen was the red light, and the New York Ranger fans in the building start going crazy. And I realized I scored. And that was obviously the biggest goal of my life. And I'm saying to...
For a few days.
For a few days. But that moment on, I was like, you don't want to screw it up. You don't want to... Let's face it, Neil gambled a big... we talked about it. There was a big gamble that he did, trading for myself and Brian Noonan for Tony Amani. It was almost a thank you. I paid forward, and I right at that moment, I really appreciate that I was able to help the Rangers win a game. And not too many people talked to me about Game 3, just a very few. But at that time, that was the biggest goal of my life, and we were up 2-1 after that, and life was perfect until Game 4, right?
For a while, but things are going to change pretty quickly, just on the flip side of that, the elation and you jumping up and down after winning that game. And if you look at the video from the Devils' perspective, Claude Lemieux finally has this goal sink in and took his stick and flung it against the boards. And this kind of capitalizes where this series is continuing to build to. And this series is now going to take a little bit of a turn and not in the way that you guys had hoped for. So we're going to continue with games 4 and 5 right after this from the Game 7 group. Game 7 has a magic attached to it like nothing in sport. In order to prevail, teamwork is essential to achieving success. At the Game 7 group, transforming individuals into cohesive teams is the core philosophy in their team building approach. Their belief is every team has potential to achieve extraordinary results. Game 7 group offers various services to help teams accomplish their goals through specific team building events, coaching, and speaking engagements. These services are aimed at improving team dynamics, productivity, and overall performance. Face it, we all want to be able to succeed in the big moment. Check out the Game 7 Group website at game7group.com/NHL Wraparound to learn more. Right now, a special incentive offer awaits our podcast listeners. Take your team to the next step. The Game 7 Group will get you there. Welcome back to a series for the ages. Neil Smith, Stephane Matteau, and Mike Richter are our guests. And after taking a 2-1 lead, you go to Game 4, and this is where things start to unravel a little bit. Devils score quickly twice. And Mike, you're out of the game in less than 17 minutes, replaced by Glenn Healy. Mike Keenan starts toying with the lines, and now he's citing that certain players are injured. And it was generally an uninspired effort. And at this point, is Keenan starting to panic?
I'll take that. I don't know if he was panicking because that's a bit of his MO, and Steph can speak to this well. But look, he's a guy that demands a lot of his players. And if you don't do it, he'll let you know. He'll bench you. He'll bench a goalie. He'll put the goalie back in. And I think we all understood that. We're okay with it. We're big boys. But, I can remember Jay Wells coming back to the bench because I was on the bench, so I did have a good view of it, and just dying. The game, a 2-0 game for our team, we didn't feel it was out of reach. And players are getting benched and different people are on the power play, which is understandable to a degree. But, the idea of not putting Leetch on the power play, for example, the time to teach that is regular season. Now you just got to perform, and you got to go with your horses. They're either going to win or they're not. And so I think there was a little bit of, it was pretty easy to question benching everybody. But at the same time, he's got his method, and we just knew that. I think the frustrating part was we didn't feel we were out of any game that we're in. Sometimes you just got awful and, they get 4 quickly and you're not coming back. But the 2-0 game for this team was not out of reach. As good as the Devils are, we felt we could always come back. So I think that was some of the frustration that you'd heard from the players. And I think a lot of people then would say, well, what's going on? Is he panicking? And, you never really want to show cracks in your lineup. No matter what's happening inside, you keep it in the locker room and the press. I think, this is setting up to that guarantee later on, because there was a lot of questioning going around the coaching staff, the players, injuries, and our ability to finish this series winning.
After the 4th game, before the 5th one, Mess has a conversation with Keenan about, we're close, we're almost there. But there's a carryover into game 5. And even though the team started out well, Bernie Nichols scores a shorthanded goal. It's 1-0 headed to the third, but you just never get the feeling that the team is in the game. And you wind up losing 4-1. And Neil, me, our good friend, John Saunders, your mom, my dad, we're sitting having a beer after the game. And you couldn't have been more gracious with the team now on the cusp of elimination.
Oh, I was friggin' furious, though. I mean, you know that. I mean, if you were with me that night, I was out of my mind after game 4. The fact that he pulled Ricky was unconscionable to me. The fact that he put guys on the bench, I mean, it was all just a big meltdown in my mind. And now I haven't had the experience with him that Steph has had, so Steph can talk to this. But like, from my vantage point, I didn't know what the F he was doing. I just was like furious. And, we get home and now we're going to the game in the Garden. And you're right. I mean, now we lose that. Now we're going to screw this whole thing up. Like, this is a 5-year project that at the last moments here, we're going to F this whole thing up. And we're doing it. This is all self-inflicted wounds. These were not, this was all friendly fire. We're getting wiped out by friendly fire here and I didn't understand what the hell we were doing. Not the players. I'm not talking about the players. I'm talking about how we're player management is going on. And that's why, and I know we're not there yet in this podcast, but that's why people have asked me 1,000 times, how did you react when you saw that Messier had guaranteed the win? And I was like, I was so happy. I couldn't have been happier. I was just like, thank God, because I have no control. But the one guy that I know does have control just guaranteed we're going to win. And I'm no more than a fan at that point. I'm just sitting there going, please be right, Mark. Please be right. Please be right. Please be right. And I could, I quite honestly, I mean, I was out of my mind, furious about where we were at, because again, I felt these were self-inflicted wounds. There was a game recently, I'm not going to say the date, in the 2024 playoffs, where the Dallas Stars got dominated in the first period worse than any team could have ever been. I've never seen a team get dominated that bad by Edmonton in the first period. Had that been Mike Keenan behind that bench of Dallas, I'm not sure any of the Dallas Stars would have been able to come out for the second period. And yet, whatever was said in that dressing room, the Dallas Stars came out and dominated the Edmonton Oilers in Edmonton, outshooting them something like 14-0 until there was 5 minutes to go in the period. That's how things can change. And that's what Mike was talking about. That things can change. Good teams can adapt and move. And when you take out our starting goaltender and you bench the Norris Trophy, futuristic Conn Smythe Trophy winner, I mean, it's self-inflicted wounds. So that's where I was at as the manager.
Well, this series is about to change again, but not with a whole lot of angst heading into Game 6. And we're going to tackle that right after this from MikeRichter.
Time now for a quick shout out to our sponsor. NHL Wraparound is brought to you by MikeRichter, your source for game-worn jerseys. Head to MikeRichter.com to get your collection started today. Get real, get it from MikeRichter. NHL Wraparound subscribers can take 10% off any hockey jersey when they order at MikeRichter.com and use the coupon code WRAP10. Don't forget that coupon code WRAP10.
Welcome back to NHL Wraparound, a series for the ages with Neil Smith, Stephane Matteau, and MikeRichter. So Messier arrives in October of 1991, the whole Slay the Dragon of the Curse. And Stephane, and Mike, we've heard Mark's account of just trying to instill confidence in the team, and have heard Brian Leetch talking about reading the New York Post, seeing the guarantee and saying, oh boy, I guess we're in it now. What were your guys' impressions when you saw Mark's comments on the back pages blaring out guaranteeing the Game 6 win?
Well, my version is very easy. I heard Mike's version a few days ago. I did not read the paper. One of those players, it was a must-win for us. So for me, it was focusing. Don't read anything into it. Don't read the papers. We didn't have any iPads or iPhone back then to read about it. So I'd never heard the guarantee win until months and months and months later. So I'm out of this question. And Mike, go ahead.
Well, same thing. I was purposely not reading the press. You have your best game, worst game, it's all these extremes, and you know what your job is, so you just kind of focus. I really wasn't. But of course, it came up. We were driving to the rink, and there it is in the Post, and I thought, no problem, we got StephaneMatteau. I think it's really fascinating to hear Neil and Steph both talk, because it jogs the memories talking about the games leading up to this. Nothing's out of context, right? And Mark didn't just decide, hey, I think I'm going to make this crazy guarantee. It was a crazy guarantee, but when you think about where we were, winning first game, losing first game, winning second game, winning third game, losing fourth, fifth, oh my God. And then this kind of crisis of confidence and everything else that was going on. The press really, blood in the water, or what's the matter? Is Leetch hurt? Is Keenan lost the team? And 100 things going on, stories coming out about all kinds of stuff. It wasn't pretty. And, there's New Jersey, buckle down, quiet. And so Mark was like, I don't want to say he's egged on. He's a big boy. And to his credit, never said, I didn't say that, or I was misquoted. But he was asked, what are you guys going to do? You have injuries, this and that. Can you find a way to penetrate this team? You're getting shots. Can you beat them? And he said, yeah, we can beat them. Yeah, but I mean, how you're saying that, but can you guarantee it? It's like, we can beat them. And it was kind of almost walk there, and he meant it. But the context very much was for our fans, but particularly for the 20 guys in the locker room. Don't change a damn thing. You're a great team. We got here because we are. Go out and play our game. And I do remember really distinctly, we had a great group of guys, and we were always laughing, and nothing kind of cuts the stress like laughing a little bit. But this was so outrageous, everything. You watch the players in the playoffs, tight-lipped, good team on the other side, God willing, we're going to try to win, There's Mess, guaranteeing a victory. We're facing elimination out of character, and we were all getting around the locker room, and more people were going, what the heck is he thinking, And Neil came in, he's like, thanks, Mess, and guys would start roaring. The last guy to come in was Keenan, he's all, and even he smiled, and the room just kind of exploded in laughter. But it was that light moment before we went out for a pregame skate where everybody's congregating and giving Mark heat about what he had just, kind of violated that idea of nothing, no, pinboard material for the other team. But, the reality was we knew exactly what we had to do. There was you can guarantee anything you want. You can talk all you want. You got to execute on the ice. And I think we're thankfully a veteran team enough and built in a way that we accepted that challenge and responded right.
But the other reality is you guys go down 2-0 in the first period. And then in the second period, as John Delapina would later be quoted, in the second period, early on, you guys are on the verge of being blown out into the New Jersey Turnpike. And the Devils are doing everything possible to land the kill shot. And you keep the team in the game, Mike, with a series of saves. And then Keenan makes a move, and he puts Kovalev on Messier's right side. And as the period went on, it looked like the Devils were almost getting a sense that, we're getting close here. And their forecheck started to lighten up a little bit, and they were giving the team the blue line. And Kovalev scores right before the end of the second period, setting up this epical effort and accomplishment by Mess in the third. Stephane, Mike, heading into the third period, is there any sense at all that what you were going to see was what Al Troutwood would later say was going to be somewhat almost biblical from Mess?
Well, that was the crazy out of the 7 games. I think that was the craziest game I've experienced. Down 2-0. The crowd, the Rangers fans in the stand, they were pretty quiet after they scored a goal, and then we called a timeout. I don't think there was too much said on the bench, except when we look at the clock, it goes, well, in the 2 periods, we're going to be out of the playoff if we don't do anything about it. But I was on the bench. I was playing my regular shifts. I didn't do much. I didn't screw up, but then I witnessed not only Messier before, but Mike, some of the big saves that he made kept us in the game, not once, not twice, but 6 to 10 times. One more goal would have been down 3-0. I don't think that we would have been able to come back from that deficit. But we witnessed a lot of leadership, greatness in Mike in the second period, and alone, Mess scoring those 3 goals alone in the third period. But Kovalev was incredible. Leetch was incredible. Zubi, we don't talk about Zubov enough. He was the quarterback. He was the Adam Fox of the Rangers this year. He was incredible. And but the witness from we were so scared. I was afraid, because you're facing elimination against a great team on the road in New Jersey, which is not an easy place to play. So I had the best seats in the house witnessing Messi's hat-trick alone.
And Mike, what are you seeing through each of the 3 goals? Obviously you have seen this emotional swing and, tying the game early in the third after you guys kill off a penalty. And then in the last, second half, about 9 minutes left in regulation, he blows through Nichols after Kovalev takes that first shot, and then the empty netter. So could you quickly just take us through the mental mindset through each of those 3 goals from where you are in the crease?
I think everybody, felt we could beat this team, truly. And I just remember when the second goal went in, I think it was Lemieux tipped it in. I just didn't want to look at the bench. I'm like, do not pull me. I felt great. I think our team looked great, but they got the bounce early. And I'm just like, stay the damn course. We're okay. I'm like, please don't pull me. And then we got through the first period, and it just felt to me that we were going to find a way. You don't know, but you just stay. As Steph said, 2 more periods, our season's over. So just keep going one shift at a time. And you can feel that momentum. It was Kovalev's goal in the second. All of a sudden, it just changed things. Wow, we're not out of it. We were actually in striking distance. That thing goes in, and you're like, now they pucker up a little bit. And we start going, oh, crap. And then when Mess scores the first one, wow, this game is the total changing complexion, but you didn't know something that momentous was going to happen. The fact that he did guarantee it, and he doesn't score a goal, he scores 3 goals, including the game winner. He scores a hat trick. I think it was perfect. He scores that goal, didn't even look, turned around, throws the puck down straight. I'm right behind it. It's in the air. I'm going, oh my God, he called it, and he gets a hat trick, and he goes over and hugs the entire bench. It was such a cool moment, one kind of shift that he had that sort of, I felt, changed everything was when he, like you said, broke through. It was almost like you're willing this goal in. And again, Kovalev is the catalyst there.
Neil, in the second period, there were shots of you just kind of chewing on a coffee stirrer and almost in despair. And that contrast when that third goal went in and you're standing next to Larry Plow in the press box, and just the relief that has come over you that you're going to bring this series back for a Game 7.
Oh, I mean, so one thing you guys don't know is that I was being taunted the whole time because I'm in that press box that's within the seats. I don't know if you remember that at the Meadowlands. And there was a guy, I was sitting beside Bob Gutkowski, and there was a guy that kept screaming at me back to the drawing board, Neil, back to the drawing board, like over and over again. And like, cause we were down. And so Bob Gukowski wanted to get a security. And I said, no, don't just leave it alone. It's okay. Just let it go. And so you can imagine then this whole thing turns around. And when Mess scored into the empty net, I looked, where was this guy? And he was gone, which to me was the greatest feeling of winning was, yeah, you took off because we won. Ha ha. And the other thing I want to say about that night was, I witnessed, and I went down, somebody interviewed me after, and I said, I just witnessed one of the greatest moments in New York sports history. I said, this has got to go with the Joe Namath New York Jets Super Bowl win and with Reggie Jackson's 3 home runs from 3 different pitchers at Yankee Stadium in 77. I said, I've never witnessed anything like this before, and I'm just so happy to have witnessed this. You know, like I watched that go. From my perspective, which is different than the players, I witnessed a performance by an athlete that I could only dream of, like that you wish you could see. You'd want to watch the replay over and over again because he had the balls to guarantee the game and then backed it up with a hat trick. Like, I don't know. I know. And we're just blessed to have been a part of that. I'm blessed to have been part of it. I know that.
So now we get to game 7. And I think in order to really set this up in terms of how enormous this series has been, just in terms of the visibility that it's gotten. Prior to the 7th game, Frank Brown wrote a piece for the Daily News. And at the end of his column, he praised both teams. And he simply said, thank you for what we had seen in the first 6 games. And who knew what was to come in this 7th game? And Mike, you know, the team carried the play most of the way, and you're carrying the lead into the 3rd period on a Bobby Orr-like spin-o-rama goal by Brian Leetch close in, which was just an enormous play by him, spectacular instincts, and held up for a long time.
Yeah, that was one of the disappointing. There's a 2nd period when he did that play, and it was just so creative and skilled, obviously. But the fact that he made this play out of nothing, and later hear him recounting what he was thinking, he had seen Gilmore do a similar thing, and you got Billy Guerin kind of closing in on him, who was fast, and he figured, well, I'm running out of real estate. Let's see if I can try this thing. Who pulls that out of their hat, you know? And it went in. It was so well executed. I was just in awe, you know, just like, thank God he's on our team. And, you know, looking back, I wouldn't change a thing because I think it was so dramatic in double OT. But winning 1-0 with that goal was such a cool thing. Like, that goal was a highlight reel unto itself and so meaningful. So it was a bit more disappointment to have them tie it for a variety of reasons. But of course, we get the kind of heroics of Steph, so that made it feel a little bit better. But that goal was absolutely amazing. And like Kovalev in the game before, we had such an arsenal where, right, you can shut down Brian for a moment or the whole team for a period or two. But then a guy like Alex, how do you account for that? He's going to come in and figure something out. We just had a lot of depth in our team. And so that's why even under those kind of tight games, we had a lot of confidence that we're going to figure it out.
So this game is now carrying into the 3rd period. Devils really aren't threatening all that much, but now, you know, last 4 or 5 minutes of regulation, they're starting to push a little bit. And just a quick thought, Mike, on what I thought was a relatively quick whistle by Billy McCreary, probably with about 15 or 18 seconds left in regulation, where you caught the puck, juggled it, dropped it right down. And in reality, you clear the puck, the game's over.
Yep.
That and was so there's
with Billy, and I love Billy, and he you know, did me more than a solid by, you know, getting out of my hair when I was losing my mind later after they scored. But there was 2 whistles at the end, and one was exactly that play. There was only seconds left, you know, under 20. I bobbled, I put it down. I didn't think there was any pressure. And the whole idea was to move it and the game's over. And he did a quick whistle. I was thinking, why? And then the next face-off, puck goes into the corner. There's a pass out in front, one shot, one whack, two whacks. By the third whack, it goes in. I'm thinking, well, how the hell did you see that? I mean, this is happening kind of quickly in your head. But I figured it was inconsistent. One was a quick whistle, and one was a slow whistle. If both of them are slow, the game's over early. If both of them are quick, that puck doesn't go in. But he had it perfectly backwards in my eyes. And so the reality was I was just upset they scored and lost my mind appropriately.
And like you said, fortunately, McCreary understood that moment of your frustration. And Neil, for you, you're up in the suite and there's this 54-year-old curse. You're almost to the final. And the sense of foreboding up there had to be almost unbearable.
Well, and back that up too with one thing that, again, I'm not one of the players, so I can say this. We had learned that Vancouver was advancing, and Vancouver was a Cinderella team that year, meaning that they weren't one of the top teams in the league, and whoever was going to win this game 7 was probably going to win the cup. I mean, I know what history told us about how long it took us with Vancouver, but still, nevertheless, you're always trying to predict things as they come up. Who would you like to play? Who does our team match up against? What's going to happen? We already knew that Vancouver was going there. So when Zelepukin got that goal, the blood rushes to your head. It really does. You want to faint because you're literally seconds away from thinking you're now the odds-on Stanley Cup favorite. We probably were the whole time, but it's, even in your own worried mind, you think you're the favorite now.
Now you've got to really recapture yourselves, settle yourselves down. Steph, what's going on in the locker room at this point? Who's taking the lead? Who's trying to settle the team down so you can go ahead and play this overtime and close this, albeit a little bit later than planned?
Well, we when Zelepukin scored, we were used to it because Richter could never keep a lead late in the game. to listening to you at like the last minute, I'm just kidding, but they.
You're welcome.
We were. I was shocked because you become a fan on the bench. Like, even though I was playing, I was counting the second. I'm about to get on the ice and celebrate with my team that we are going to the Stanley Cup. And they took that away with 7 seconds left in the game. So we were all crushed. No guarantees anymore because now the next goal wins. We went to the locker room, silent. I think I recall silent for the first 5-7 minutes because you have to, you still have to manage to fix your stick, your skates, your equipment, and your thoughts. And I don't know I think it was Kevin Lowe, or I'm sure it was him or one of the Edmonton guys start talking, and the positive vibes start going. Let's get going. Let's keep it short. Let's don't screw it up. Just the things were become very positive, and then we forgot about the negative outcome. It was more of a positive. Let's stay positive. Let's keep it short, and good things gonna happen. I still believe we were the best team in the league. We won many, many games throughout the year, and in my mind, I was content. If we lose, we're all right. I already have a double overtime goal in Game 3. I like to tell that story, but it's a focus that we had in a locker room. It was negative. Focus became positive. I think that's what kept us going. And then we all know the outcome a few minutes later.
Well, you guys certainly carried the play through the first overtime. The most dangerous chance by the Devils was a little chip on a partial 2-on-1 by Bill Guerin, and you made that save relatively easily. And now you're heading to the second overtime. And Mike, the one save that may have been really the most spectacular in the series comes right before Steph's goal on that shot from the left wing circle by Stephane Matteau. And the save in and of itself is great. And then the heart-stopping moment that the puck actually disappears within Bernie Nichols and 2 or 3 other players, and then it leaks out to the right side of the net. Walk us through that.
Well, I think just going back to right after the goal was scored, you have to reset. You can yell all you want, but you got to face reality. There's a team on the other end that's looking to go to the Cup Finals just as much as we are. So I think it was Kevin Lowe, Steph. Your recollection's right. You know, Mark doesn't have to get up and give a speech every time. We had a lot of veterans in the locker room there, and he said if it wasn't so hard, it wouldn't be so much fun when we end up winning this thing. And it was a great, you got to refocus and you want something to chew on, and that's exactly right. And it ended up being the case, truly, right? I mean, if you're going to win a game, would you want to win a double overtime game 7? Then, that's something that's memorable. And, then you go back to work. They're excited. 20 minutes goes by. We're depressed. 20 minutes go by, but both kind of ships right themselves and you're ready for battle again. And, then all of a sudden it can go conservative a little bit. And I think we're the aggressors in that first OT. But, you watch this every year. You're going to say it could be a greasy goal that bounces off someone's, own skate or whatever it's going to be, but get pucks at the net. And it's not just pucks at the net. Get the possession of it and get into the Jersey zone is no easy deal. This is a team that stands you up, makes it very difficult to even get territorial advantage. And so one of the real important things that we had was a heavy team like Steph that was able to do that. But both sides are going to get chances. Stephane Matteau has a big shot, and he was using it plenty, and he leaned into one. I was able to make a save, but it just ping-ponged all over the place in front of the net and kind of laid down. And for a moment, it looked like I think both Nichols or Guerin, whoever it was in front, was quite close to me. So even though I'm sprawled out, they didn't have a real good ability to get it lifted. And we were able to get possession of the puck and move back down the other end. But for me, it felt like it's just going to be punch, counter punch, and you got to be ready as much as you possibly can when they come your way. But it felt to me that we were the aggressors through both overtimes. Just our heavy play down low is something that was a staple. Even with the brilliance of Leetch or Zuby and all the pretty plays we make, we can find ways of getting greasy goals. And, of course, that's what happened.
Steph, before the second overtime, little good luck from Ed Olczyk.
The game 3, he was in the hallway. He was not in the press box because the players who were not playing, they have to stick around the locker room. If we win or lose, the coaching staff, when they do their message, their little pep talk after a game, everyone has to be in the locker room. So I don't know if I felt bad for Eddie not playing that game. I felt even though I had to focus, those are our brothers. And I said, Eddie, why don't you give me some luck in game 3? I scored. So game 7, I always had the same routine. I would take my skates off. We didn't have the technology like the dryer machine they have now to dry the skates and the gloves. And my skates, I remember they were soaking wet. And I took them off. And at the 3-minute mark, I always tied my skates and I broke my legs. And Messier, Anderson, and Graves, they were always on the starting lineup every single period that we played, win or lose. And I knew I was not on the first, so I had plenty of time to put my skates on and fix it. And Eddie was still in the locker room thinking the whole team was on the ice. To his surprise, I was still alone in the locker room. And I said, Eddie, why don't you touch my stick again? And that moment alone, that I think that really relaxed me because he started dancing with it. He started making out. I don't know if I saw a tongue or what coming out and of his mouth and just, but we all know Eddie, we all love him. He's our brother. And he made me relax. Maybe naive on my side. I'll be back in 5 minutes. I'm going to score that thing. And I went along and I scored with 4 point something minutes. So, but that moment alone, I like to tell that story because you're playing or you're not playing, you're part of a team. And I think Eddie O brought some luck into my life, and I'll be grateful for the rest of my life.
And there was on the broadcast that night, they noticed that you had a little bit of extra jump in your step and you knocked down, the clearing pass is knocked down, that Fetisov tries to make to clear the zone. You go after it and you take us through the most probably memorable goal in the history of the New York Ranger franchise.
I had good jump. I was 20. I was one of the youngest guy on the team. And I was coming back from the bench. I just jumped on the ice and I saw something, the puck deflected in the brother's right corner. And I had a very good jump. And looking back, I've seen that video millions of times. And because of the old rule, Niedermeyer started to hook me. Because he was hooking me, my body kind of turned towards the front of the net. Because I did not, to be honest, between just four of us, I did not have a plan, which I never had a plan. And that was pure luck. My friends they always argue with me. It was skill. It was pure luck because Niedermeyer hooked me really, really hard. If you look at it again, he kind of stopped skating. And so my body was towards the front of the net. And I didn't see there was a hole between brother's glove and the stick, the post. So to my surprise, I had the best seat in the house. I didn't know if I scored or Keenan scored or brother deflected in. I did not care. We are going to the Stanley Cup finals. And that's what Neil brought me in. I was a team player. I'll give myself some credit. I was a good team player. And my first thought was like, we're going to the Stanley Cup final. Thank you, God. And then later on, Keenan says, I think I touched it. I said, I don't. I understood that part. My French and his Tiquinese, whatever. I said, I don't care, Essa. I don't care. We're going to the Stanley Cup final. After I went to the replay and I thought, you never touched it. Please don't take credit. And to my surprise, and 30 years later, we still talk about that moment and changed my life, but also changed the New York Rangers organization and also the great fans of the New York Rangers.
And I've looked at this goal more times than I care to share. And I think actually Fetisov's stick was the one that got in between the pads and maybe redirected that through. And if you look at his reaction afterwards, he kind of drops his head and covers his face. And Mike, I've also heard your description of what you were seeing from the other end, because you have a perfect line of vision 180 feet away. And I love you saying, oh my God, did that actually go in?
Yeah, it is weird. I mean, I have to tell you, you remember certain ones, but that one it felt like I was standing in the crease. Like I just had such an odd, perfect view straight down. I don't normally do that. I mean, look, the red light goes on. It's a goal. If it doesn't, you're preparing for your shot against, particularly in overtime. That's all you're thinking. And I'm like, that just looked like it went in. I mean, it looked slow. But there was just, the way your mind works, there was a moment of just quietness. And then the place just erupted. It was almost like slow motion. Like I have to tell you, I asked myself, did that go in? Because no one was reacting for a second there. And then everybody saw it. The light did come on. And then it was just pandemonium because, you're suppressing every bit of fear and hope and everything that you have in order to just focus on your job. So you don't let yourself go there. Like the minute I start thinking about whether it went in or not, I'm not thinking about my job. So you really, that was pre, I guess, replays. So, once the light goes on, it's kind of in, but you really didn't want to let yourself kind of come out of your zone there. And, it was spectacular. There was just that calm before the absolute eruption. And that's just pure joy because, you've put so much into it. And we knew we had, as Howie Rose said, one more hill to climb, but you're not climbing that hill unless you get through this one. And this was a tough series.
And Neil, the MSG cameras caught you in the suite right after the goal, and you are in Bob Gutkowski's arms, and he's like patting you on that. I mean, were you crying?
No, but I can tell. So I'm 3 stories above Mike, right above him, right? He's in the net. I'm right above that net. And I see Steph go behind the net with the puck. It wasn't something that I hadn't seen many, many times, plays like that. But the thing that I saw was his reaction that we've all seen 1,000 times now, of him jumping up in the air, and those guys that are behind the net, they know the puck's in or not. Like, they're not guessing at that. They see the puck is over the line, and when you see a reaction like that, and then of course you see the red light, and it's all in slow motion because you're not wanting to come out of your own mental zone either, and you're going like, was that in? Was that in? Was that in? But Matteau's reaction, I call you Matteau because I'm doing it like you're not sitting there, Steph. His reaction is so, it's so over the top that you're like, they scored. Like, and it's way, way down the other end. Like, my box was quite a ways from that, like more than 200 feet, because I'm back from the net and up 3 stories. So, but I mean, then it's just complete overwhelming joy, and just not even, it is a relief, but that one was joy. That was pure joy. The next joyous moment to that was when the buzzer went 3-2 with Vancouver. But I'm not sure that joy was any more of that at that moment than Steph's goal. Like, the joy was equal. It just, you were in a different place in time.
That's a good way of saying it, Neil. I think at some point you kind of forget it's the conference finals. Of course, you know that, but you're trying to beat the team across from you, and you don't want to yield an inch. So, one mistake, one bounce, one goal is the season. And I think you're so focused on just getting that done and doing your job to get it done that it all comes out. And exactly what you're saying, it felt slow motion to me. It felt like that thing's just going across the line. I don't know whether I was imagining it or what, but I recall us saying, that looks like it's in. I don't know how the hell I could see it from there. But I can tell you that my reaction was, we just scored. And I think I do remember Steph scoring that double overtime goal, and I don't care who scores it. We're happy. We won. But I do think that it matters to the locker room, because guys that do hard work like Steph is doing all year for his team, and then coming to the Rangers and having to integrate into a veteran team that's already in first place, that's not an easy task. It's a very difficult thing to do. And you want to see anybody who does a great play or a good game be rewarded. But the guys that don't normally get the press, I think it matters. And when he scored that one, double overtime goal in game 3, I wasn't sure who scored until I saw him leaping up, and I was like doubly thrilled it was him. And he'd come in the locker room and been like he said, a great team guy, funny guy, and a hard-working guy. And we had a lot of really important soldiers, and it's just cool to see them have that moment. And then he, a couple games later, has the moment. So I think everything about it, led to what Neil said. A, you just beat your crosstown rival. B, you are going to the Stanley Cup. C, that game was awesome, and you wanted to come out on top. But also, the guy who scored it was, just sat on the bench for, half an hour, and to walk in and do that is pretty cool.
But all that to if we don't win the cup 2 weeks later, it's not the same feeling. MessierGuarantee, game 6, it would have been a great goal, but we don't win, we don't finish the job 2 weeks later. I get that part, but we've met thousands of people in the last 30 years who were at the game. Like Neil and Mike said, it was a special. We were 19, 20,000 people gathered Madison Square Garden who witnessed something special. And we all had something to do. Neil had the guts to pull the trigger at the deadline. I'm sure I told you, but I'm very grateful that you had the guts to do it. Mike, we all chipped in. So that's why we made it so special. The fans, they get to know us the last 30 years. We were great players, but also we were great teammates, and they felt that we respected each other. But that was the best series I experienced. But talking to other experts in hockey, that was probably the top 3 greatest series of all time.
Neil, I think this is a perfect way to wrap it up. And Stephane put it in just perfect words there. Had you ever seen any series like this before or since?
I don't think so, Vic. I don't think I saw anything like that. And as Steph said it very wisely, but if we don't finish a job, and I shouldn't say we, if they don't finish a job 2 weeks later, this is not all so illustrious as it is right now. And, but I want to say one last thing, to you guys, because I said this to Eddie Olchuk when he was on here, and I'll say it over and over again. I don't care if you talk about Benny Petruzzi, you talk about Joe Murphy, Karpatsev. None of them are with us anymore. Mike Folga, those 4 aren't with us anymore. But you take one single person out of that group, we don't win. That's my real strong feeling. That was a perfect group. And it goes all the way through the trainers to and even with the Keenan thing, all laughing aside. I mean, without Mike, we don't win. Mike did what he had to do. Whatever that craziness was, he did it. And Colin Campbell and Dick Todd and every single person. And I think that's what Mess also taught us. At least I know he taught me that every single person is important. And it takes every single person to put together a championship team, whether you're just handing out the towels or you're Mike Richter playing 60 minutes a game. Like the only hockey player that stays on the ice the entire game is the goaltender. Obviously, the goaltender's got to be your most important player because he's on the ice the whole game. So whether you're handing out towels or you're the trainer or your Potsy, who was such a great guy and so important to that team, or your Doug Lidster, who ended up coming from the Vancouver Canucks and ended up on the ice. And I know we'll get to this later, but he ends up on the ice when the buzzer goes, and we've beaten his Vancouver Canucks to win the Stanley Cup. I mean, there's all these fabulous stories, and no story is better than Stephane Matteau and scoring a double overtime. Will never, no Ranger will ever forget that name, Matteau, ever.
I know it's to your point. I'm living it every single day, but I don't take that moment for granted. I'm a very good ambassador for it because I meet those fans, those great fans, and they are looking forward to meet me and what type of person that I am when after they meet me. So I take pride of meeting them, to spending quality time with them, and it's just been a great journey. We can go on and on, but I'm very grateful for that moment. But thank you very much to have the decency to and the guts to trade for me, even though it was not a popular trade at the time. Very, very
and
grateful.
Of course,
thank you.
Last thing, Mike, you may not know this. You probably do, though. Steph and I hadn't met for the first time when I traded for him. I actually took him to a Bon Jovi concert when he was 18 years old in Detroit.
Pre-draft in Detroit, yeah.
Yeah, and Steph couldn't speak one word of English at that time.
So I'm going for
that was much nicer, wasn't it, Neil?
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going for an interview, but could not speak English. I remember your GM or the Mr. Devellano asked me if I could watch it was during the Stanley Cup Finals. Would you rather watch the game in my office or go upstairs or downstairs? I don't remember where the office was, and go see Bon Jovi. I spoke English at the time, said I want to go see Bon Jovi. And so that's how we met. And that's things happen in our lives, right? Maybe that's what you could not draft me that year, but later on you were able to acquire from me. A lot of things happen. If we never met, never know.
Never know.
Well, I think you said it best, Steph. I mean, you talked about Eddie O and Neil. It is a we, and Mark definitely taught us that, but we lived it. And all those people, little puzzle pieces, made a difference. And I thought, we were talking about this the other day, Steph, when Mess got the cup, at some point, he brings it over to the fans and goes against the glass, and a bunch of people are touching it. I'm sure there's heart attacks with the NHL brass up there, but New Yorkers get to touch it, and it's everybody in the locker room. It's the leadership of the organization, but it's the fans too. It's the entire city, and you're exactly right, Steffer. Everybody's part of that. And we're just, how lucky are we to be able to, I got to say thanks too, Neil. You could have traded me. You didn't have to put the team together that you did, and you made it happen after 54 years. And, all you think about as a player is the next year, we got to go win another one. And, but you don't realize how fortunate you are to have the people around you to put you in that position the way we have. Everybody on this call, lucky, fortunate to be the people that, represent New York, play in this incredible series against Jersey and double overtime, score the goal, and end up winning the cup. Really tremendous.
Well, 30 years later, and like Bon Jovi, Neil, Stephane, Mike, you are still rock stars in New York.
I feel like one, let me tell you. I don't look like one, but I feel like one.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and really taking us down memory lane on what was an absolutely extraordinary conference final series against New Jersey. Thanks to our listeners, and thank you to our sponsors, MyGray and the Game 7 Group. And don't forget to visit our website at www.nhlwraparound.com. All of the episodes from when we started recording in January are available to you. So that'll do it for us for this episode. But in series, the fourth show of our series, we will cover the Stanley Cup final against Vancouver. And we will be joined by 52-goal scorer Adam Graves, the Conn Smythe Trophy winner Brian Leetch, and the captain Mark Messier. So hopefully we will see you then.
Thanks for joining us on the NHL Wraparound podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date on all the NHL action.